Hello, my name is Paula Gooder, and I am the Canon Chancellor of St Paul's Cathedral in London, which means that I'm one of the ministers who work at the cathedral. I'm also their theologian in residence and director of learning, and I look after all the learning that takes place within the cathedral, from the very youngest, who come probably around the age of 3 or 4, all the way through to the very oldest. But when I'm not being Canon Chancellor of St Paul's Cathedral, I am a New Testament scholar. And I have for many years written many books and done lots of lecturing on the Bible in general and the New Testament in particular. And one of my biggest passions is to be able to communicate really good quality scholarship, but in a way that is easy to understand and is very accessible. A few years ago now, I started writing a series of books, all based on the Christian year. And there are 4 books in the series. And I can't tell you how utterly delighted I am that they have been translated into Korean. And I really hope that you enjoy them if you decide to start reading them. So the 4 are, the first one is The Meaning is in the Waiting, which the Spirit of Advent, which looks at the themes that are associated with an Advent candle. I don't know if in your churches you have an Advent wreath, but in St Paul's Cathedral and in many other churches in England, what we do at Advent is we have a wreath and there are 4 candles on it. Actually, there are 5 because the 5th one is for Christmas Day. But on each Sunday of Advent, we light a candle. On the first Sunday, we dedicate the candle to the patriarchs and the matriarchs. On the second Sunday, we dedicate the candle to the prophets. The third Sunday, we dedicate the candle to John the Baptist. The fourth to Mary. And the 5th, as I've said already, is on Christmas Day. So in The Meaning is in the Waiting, I reflect on those 4, the patriarchs and matriarchs, the prophets, John the Baptist and Mary. And what I do in these books is I think about the biblical stories and the importance of what's going on in the biblical stories, but I also think about what difference it makes to us today. So this book, The Meaning is in the Waiting, thinks about Advent and its importance. Then next, after I did Advent, I then did This Risen Existence. One of the stories, one of the events really in the Bible that for me is so very important is Jesus' resurrection. This risen existence reflects on the 50 days that go from Easter all the way through to Pentecost and asks questions like, what happened at Jesus' resurrection? What difference does this make in the world? What's the ascension for? And what is Pentecost? And in this book, I look extensively about why Jesus' resurrection makes such a big difference to us as we live our lives as Christians. Then my third book, this one, Let Me Go There, is based in Lent and has a look at what difference it makes to be a disciple of Jesus on the road to the cross. So if we as Christians follow on the way to the cross, what does it mean for us? How do we live our lives? How does it affect the kind of decisions we make about who we are and where we're going? And then finally, the 4th in the series is this one. And this is called Everyday God, the Spirit of Ordinary Time. And in Everyday God, I think about the bits in between. So ordinary time in the Christian year, the big chunk of it comes after Pentecost. So from the end of Pentecost all the way through to Advent. But there's often also a very small bit after Christmas before we get to Lent. And one of the things I think about in this book is how often in our modern world we don't really like the idea of ordinariness. What we want is extraordinary. We want something bigger and better and more exciting all the time. But God in the Bible actually deeply and profoundly loves ordinary things and ordinary people. Ordinariness is actually a really significant theme in the Bible. And so as I look at the characters in this book, I look at the people in the Bible who simply through living their everyday lives and doing what they could, lived an extraordinary life with God. So this book is a very important one for me because in it I think about people like you and people like me who are simply trying to live their everyday lives. And as they live their everyday lives, they do their best to spread the glory of the gospel in the world. And as they do that, in all of their ordinariness, God makes their ordinary deeds extraordinary. So I hope you enjoyed this series, Everyday God. Let me go there, this risen existence, and the meaning is in the waiting. As I've said, it's a Bible study, but also applying things to our everyday lives. And I really hope that you enjoy doing that as you explore your way through this series.